Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of ChatEBC, where we get to meet some of the variety of members that we have in the European Bridge chapter from all over the world with a huge variety of stories and backgrounds. And this is all about getting to know some of the members that we might not have gotten to know at different summits, and an opportunity to find out a little bit more about each other. So today I'm delighted to be welcomed by Anna, who is living currently in Marbella. And you can tell by the light in the background that the weather is a lot nicer there than it is here in Dublin. Anna, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. I'm very happy to chat today and share some of my story.
So tell us, you're in Marbella, which is an extraordinarily lovely place to be spending a lot of your time. But you're not from Marbella. So give us a little bit of a background where you're from, and firstly, how you ended up in Marbella.
Firstly, how I ended up in Marbella. I was living in London for about 5 years, and then I just got tired of the weather that it sounds like you're experiencing. Ended up buying a place in the sun down here, and pretty much loved it a little bit too much. And now this is home, and I think it was honestly probably one of the best decisions I've made. Just the quality of my life has gone up, and yeah, just a very different lifestyle than in any of the other places that I've lived before.
So you mentioned there that you've lived in other places, like you're not originally from London. Where are you originally from?
Yeah.
And then what brought you to London? And it's completely understandable that the sunshine brought you to Marbella, but how'd you end up in London first?
I think maybe let's just rewind the tape even a little bit earlier. So I was actually born in Bulgaria. I was born in a small town in Bulgaria during communism. So as a child, I just still remember kind of going to the store and just, there was like nothing to buy, and we were buying things with coupons, etc. So I lived in Bulgaria until I was a teenager. And then I signed up for a student exchange program and moved to Seattle. Actually, I moved to the States. I was 16. It was my first time getting on a plane. I, at that point, didn't even really know who I was going to live with. I think this was sort of pre kind of Wi-Fi and whatever it was. And it was just a printed picture of a host family. So first time on a plane, I was 16. I left Bulgaria behind, and I flew halfway across the world to Seattle and met the people I was going to live with for the next year there. So then from there, I moved to New York. I went to school in New York, went to university in New York. And then after university, I ended up starting my business in New York and living for 17 years there. So that was my home, which is where I think I got my American accent from. And then I think it was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, it was time for a change. My family was living in Europe, and I just wanted to be a little bit closer to them. So sort of packed up from New York and moved to London. I didn't know anyone in London. I guess I didn't know anyone when I moved to Seattle or New York.
I don't want to get into a political conversation here, but the irony is not lost on me that you wanted to move to London, or you wanted to move to Europe and picked the country that voted to leave Europe. But we won't get into that conversation right now.
No, I think I missed that part actually. But okay, I stand corrected. No, but
So you then moved to London, and your family was in Bulgaria still, or around Europe?
No, they moved around. They lived in Canada for a while, but at the point when I moved to London, they were living in Belgium. So they were living in Belgium and in France. But yeah, I think I was just ready for a change. And then that was the time when I joined EO. So I didn't know anyone moving to London, and I joined EO, and that was just an amazing new beginning of meeting like-minded people in London. I built a community. I made some lifelong friends. I just built a life in London really through EO, and it really helped me with the transition. So I was living in London for really up until last year. and then just found paradise and moved to Marbella, and now spend a lot of my time in the sunshine.
It's one of the things I really love all of these stories that you hear, especially in the chapter of EBC, how much people move around the world and how much people are open to the experience and the adventure of going. I mean,
Yeah.
even I think of my kids now, and even from Ireland to Seattle just seems so far away. But when you're 16, I mean, it's so far away, even with Zoom and FaceTime and all the rest of it. It must have been a really daunting, not daunting, but it must have been a really, yeah, maybe daunting is the right word, when you're 16 to go literally to the other side of the world.
Honestly, I think it was probably daunting for my mom, but it was actually very exciting for me.
Oh, no, I'm
Yeah,
looking at this purely from a parent point of view. I mean,
yeah,
my kids would probably love the challenge. I'd be
no,
like, "Ah."
I mean, honestly, and again, these were the times when there was dial-up internet, and you only got like, a couple of hours a month to even be online, and we had like phone cards to call my mom, and I would get sort of the occasional emails, etc. And yeah, I mean, obviously, my mom was not very happy about it, but she knew it had. I think it was just because I was raised in this environment where there just wasn't opportunity. There just wasn't opportunity, and by the time I was a teenager, I was craving to be in a place with opportunity, where things could happen, where you could work really hard, and you could build amazing things. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the mindset that I grew up with. The mindset in communism was that you could work really, really hard, but nothing could still happen. So by the time I was a teenager, like, that was super exciting to me. I had no fear. And yeah, I think it just felt like an incredible adventure. That being said, once I did go to Seattle, it was probably one of the most challenging times of my life. Like the 1 year living there, was probably my first lesson of resilience, and then kind of led to just being able to weather the ups and downs. But it was very, very difficult. I was very, very homesick. I felt very sort of stranded at the other kind of side of the world. And and also I should say, yeah, I mean, my family literally sent me with $1,000 to last me for the year. And I remember my dad telling me, this is all we can give you. And by the way, it does include a budget for a car. So that's what's going to last you for the next year. And if you want a nicer car, you're going to have to work for it. So, it was, I couldn't figure out how to buy a car for less than 1,000. So I actually never ended up buying a car.
Well, I mean, if you're not going to buy a car, probably the city to live in is New York then. So that makes sense.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that was the next stage of the journey. Really was, I think, just moving to a city and moving to a place where it just felt incredibly international and where it felt like anything is possible. So that was an interesting time, because I moved to New York to go to school, and then I just kind of had this moment of I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was raised in an environment where kind of everyone thought that you should either be a doctor or a lawyer to make money. And my family was in medicine, and I felt like, because of that, I obviously didn't want to do it. And then, that kind of left me with being a lawyer. But then I just sort of felt like being a lawyer, that my English wasn't good enough to actually be a lawyer at that point. So I was like, okay, well, 1 and 2 are not going to work. What's the best third option? So I ended up studying business, international business with marketing. And then, yeah, it was just kind of this moment post college of, I have this degree, I'm in this incredible city of opportunity. What do I do now? And yeah, and I felt lost for a bit. I really did. It was a dream to go to an Ivy League school. You and I were chatting and joking about, I guess, this part of the journey before this call. But yeah, I really wanted to go to Harvard. It was a dream come true. It would have been a dream come true. And after school, I applied. I really wanted to do an MBA there. and I was rejected. But then I think that was just a driver into what happened next.
So that's a lovely thing. What happened next? Because doing business and marketing, not exactly the next logical step into
No.
what your business is.
No. And actually, I think that was the issue, was just business and marketing is so broad. You could do a million things with it, right? So I think after the kind of, Harvard kind of rejection and just having this degree and, being straight out of college, I remember looking for different opportunities and different jobs, etc. And honestly, I ended up being very randomly recruited by a company in New York that was doing conferences. They were producing events, and I knew nothing about the business. But being, I suppose, 21, 22 at that point, it sounded really, really exciting and dynamic, and it sounded a lot better than being in some, office somewhere all day long and crunching numbers or whatever it needs to be. So
some cubicle in the basement of a sky
yeah,
rise.
yeah, and then it kind of just fell into my lap, really, to even know about this business. So I ended up being recruited, ended up taking the job. I ended up working for them for, I think, 3 months. And what happened in those 3 months was that I realized I loved the events business. I loved the creation behind it. I liked that it's really commercially viable because, it starts with an idea and, you can monetize on your idea and make it all happen, etc. But I really did not like being an employee. Just talking about being in a cubicle, I lasted exactly 3 months. So that didn't go very well. But I ended up, just in the process, I ended up having an idea of an event that I just thought that the market was missing. And I pitched it to the company I was working for, and they shut it down. And then I kind of just took my idea and decided to try it on my own. So I was 22, and I just made the decision that I'm going to try and produce this event on my own. I kind of sort of knew the process behind it, probably overly confident. And then I just decided to roll the dice. And it was quite a journey, because I hadn't even been to a conference before. I wasn't even employed long enough to actually be on site at a conference. So I remember, I quit the job and then I started the company, and, it was just me, and I worked on this event, and I produced it, and we kind of recruited, all the speakers and the logistics around it, etc. And then it came the point where the event started selling. I was making money, and it just kind of, it started happening. And then I called one of my ex-colleagues, and I said, I just sort of need your guidance on what happens on site, because I've never been to an event. Like, walk me through what I need to do. And she did. And yeah, my very first event was my training ground, I suppose, to even know what happens in an event. So that's how it started. I don't know, I was probably a little bit too young and too naive, but that was the beginning of my company.
But that's the way some of these best stories start. And that was how long ago now?
Well, that you would okay, you would know my age now.
Okay, I won't ask then.
That's okay. That was 16. No, that was 16 years ago. I think I was 20, 22, 23 when I started. I think it was right before my birthday. 16 years into the making, and 300 plus events.
800 plus events. That's phenomenal.
300.
And you,
300.
sorry?
300.
300, still phenomenal in that amount of time. But you've quite a niche, right?
Yes.
So it's not general events for anybody can come and hire you. You're not an event organizer for other people. You have your own your own format and your own industry. So tell me about that, because that to me is really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's a very common misconception. People just think that we're in event planning, and that actually couldn't be further away from the truth. So, actually, what we do is we produce content, content in events around mostly private equity conferences, B2B conferences. So we come up with the concept, we find sort of our niche, we do all the programming, sponsorship, marketing, etc. I mean, with essentially the producers behind it, they're under our own brand, and yeah, the need that we solve is that we essentially connect kind of investors with deal flow. They're very, very targeted events. I suppose going back to the very first event that we did, it was a real estate private equity conference, and that was 2008, and it was just around when kind of the whole real estate world was falling apart, and there was just this need for people to go to a place where they can talk about, and all these big investors, your Blackstones and etc., where they can go and have a conversation and meet like-minded people about the industry, what's going on, and kind of what's next.
And so was that what you pitched to the original employers, or was it a version of that?
No, it was exactly that.
It was exactly that.
Mm.
And how do they feel now?
Well, we haven't spoken in about 17 years.
Okay. So you've been doing this a long time. If you weren't doing this, is there anything else that you'd like to try your hand at? A completely different industry, a completely different interest area. Is there something? I mean, you love what you're doing, and you're built it over a huge amount of time. But is there anything else that you'd like to explore?
You know, I think one of my sort of regrets is really that I sort of didn't consider medicine more seriously earlier in my journey. It's just amazing how it works, isn't it? When I was a teenager and I was getting pressure from my family to be a doctor, I didn't want to do it. But then obviously the older I've gotten, the more I realized that, you know, maybe I should have listened a little bit more. Yeah, and I think
I'm sorry, I'm just letting you know I'm gonna be playing this part of this interview for my teenage daughters.
Okay, perfect.
You should listen to your father more. Sorry.
Well, probably, yeah, it would probably resonate that it's coming from someone else rather than you. But yeah. It's just amazing how it works, isn't it? Yeah, no, I think as much as I love business and, you know, all of that, I think yeah, just the medicine, and probably one of my regrets is that I would have been a doctor, and I would try and help people and work with people, and, you know, kind of, yeah, just have sort of that contact with trying to help them.
So we were talking about earlier on about academia, and you'd applied to go to Harvard, and we were talking just before this call about the different EO exec ed programs, because I've just finished the EO at Oxford, and it was phenomenal. Yeah. But I know myself, like when you talk about going back and being a doctor or going back and doing medicine, to me, all I hear is like 7 years or 9 years of study in college, and that to me is I would find that hell on earth.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably going to be in the next life. I think it is what it is now. So very happy with that decision. But yeah, I think
we could build a thing instead of ChatGPT. We could just build ChatGP, where you can build an AI that tells you what's wrong with you. You put in your symptoms and it spits out, oh, you should have this, you should take this medicine.
He is such an entrepreneur. I love it. No, I think I was just going to say, I really deeply resonate, I think, with what you mentioned about your daughters, because, yeah, I really was one of these young girls, women that just had this moment of kind of not being able to find my feet. And I find that you have to make these really, really big decisions about your future when you don't know yourself very well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from a purely selfish point of view, that's what part of my business is helping people at that age and that stage to find what's ideal for them. But there's an interesting thing that I came across recently, that there is a physiological thing that happens in teenagers, both male and female. I think it's more pronounced in females, that at the age of 14 to kind of 24, that age where in back in the day, like when women become fertile and they have puberty and all the rest of it, that they are physiologically wired to move away from their families, to move away from their tribes, to find partners and to find other people in other tribes to prevent kind of inbreeding and all this kind of stuff. From a pure physiological point of view. And then after 24, they start to come back to the family. It's a really interesting thing that studies are finding now as something that happens, and is a bit of an explanation as to why teenagers are so good at the eye roll and stop making those jokes.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned 24, because so my grandmother, by the way, I should say I have really, really strong Greek roots. So half of my family are Greeks. So my grandmother was, well, just about Greek, really. So she was this very, very strong woman, and she was a midwife. And I remember she was just saying that, as a woman, the best time to have a child and, settle down and whatnot is when you're, between 20 to 24, and God forbid you're 25 and you haven't had a child, right? Like, so, but yeah, it was just this whole concept of, as a very young woman, all these expectations that I think is sort of put on you and decisions that you have to make, etc. Well, for me, being in this very traditional kind of environment was difficult to navigate.
So if you think about where the world is going now, sorry, the other thing that about your business that I find really interesting is the fact that your events are all in the US, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
but you've been living in Europe for 7 years, so you're running that, and you go across to the events and you're over regularly, but you have built a way to be able to do that, which is kind of the dream for a lot of people, living in a beautiful place in Europe, being able to spend time with family and still being able to run that successful business in the US. How has that gone?
So in that very moment when I was working for 3 months for the other company, and kind of sort of plotting my next move.
You keep coming back to this traumatic 3 months.
Because
it feels like there's a lot of PTSD in that 3 months.
No, because it very much shaped what I want for my life at that point. And one of the things that I always wanted, and again, this was 16, 17 years ago, was that whatever I was to do next, it was really, really important to me that it would give me the freedom to work from anywhere, travel, enjoy life, not have a set schedule. And when I started building the company and hiring people and creating the culture, I created that culture based on my values and my expectations and what I wanted kind of life to be for this team. So actually, we're working remotely. My team and I have been working remotely for 17, well, close to 17 years. And that we were doing this way before everyone else was doing it. And I was running events from London that are, in LA and, traveling the whole world. I mean, I traveled in my 20s after I started the company. I think I traveled to 30, 40 countries while running these events. And it's just, you just sort of find your way to do it. I mean, it was something that was really, really important to me, just to have a business that, doesn't limit what I wanted to do in life. So how do we do it? You find ways to do it, flexible hours, flexible times. It gets a little bit busier around the events. But, ultimately, and this has always been one of my philosophies, is whenever I hire people that do have this freedom, and again, this was a concept for us even 10 years ago, I just find that people have been given their best because they have this personal freedom around them and they don't mind working late and, putting in the hard work, if that means that, you can do all these other things. Mm-hmm. It's actually a lot easier than it sounds. I mean, yeah, I've gotten so many questions just around how we've made it work. And it hasn't been that difficult.
Very good. So as you're running the business and the events in the US, living in Europe, having family in Europe, Is there anything that's kind of on your mind at the moment? Anything you're playing around with now? Again, this is not the EO 5%
Yeah.
stuff because video and all the rest of it. But is there anything that's percolating around in your mind at the moment?
Yeah. I think I've kind of reached the point where I just would really love to be able to maybe mentor or, share experiences with young girls, young women that are maybe just straight out of college, want to get into business, don't know what they want to do, and just kind of help them with, the little experience and that I've had and kind of the emotional journey and the ups and downs and learnings, and just to be able to pass that along. So I've been thinking a lot about just ways that I can do this and, finding the time to do it. So I just think it will be really rewarding.
Interesting. I love that. So, I mean, again, I'm going to pull this back to something that I'm really passionate about, which is the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. And let's see if we can try and get you more involved, because next year we'll be doing it again we'll have an EBC competitor, and we'll see what we can do about Europe. And the final will probably be in Europe, in Dublin, as part of GLC. But we can talk about that another time. Okay. This is one of the great things about the ChatEBC. It starts to line up other conversations that we can all have about this topic. So let's get into the quick fire questions. So I'm going to have 5 just quick fire. What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you hear this question? No preamble or anything else. So first question, what's the last thing that made you genuinely smile?
Having this chat with you.
That was quick. Well done.
First thing on my mind, yeah.
Question 2: what's your favorite charity or not-for-profit? Okay, favorite might be unfair if there's one or two. No. What's a charity that you think is doing that you enjoy supporting?
I'll twist the question slightly, if that's okay. ALS is slightly personal to me because someone that's very, very close to me has it. So yeah, I would say that's probably hits home a bit.
Okay, very good. What's your third question? What's your favorite way to challenge yourself?
Favorite way? I guess to just stretch myself outside of my comfort zone. By the way, I mean, I'm generally a very, very private person. So even having this chat and being recorded and going public is uncomfortable. But even this morning, I said to myself, it'd be actually really good to just get yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone and do something a little different.
I mean, I hope that people who are watching this, and I hope that people who have been on this program feel that this is an incredibly safe space. So thank you for that.
Yeah, but it is public.
But it is public, yes. This is true.
It does go on YouTube, so my team can watch it if they want.
But we haven't said anything, and don't worry, I will have already edited out all of the nasty things that you said. No, I'm kidding. We're not. Sure. We didn't.
Next question.
Next question. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Oh God. Okay, well, now I need to go back to communism in Bulgaria. Honestly, so many. I mean, I didn't grow up with much, but I just remember having a very, very happy childhood. Didn't even have a bike because we couldn't afford it. But I just remember just spending a lot of time with family. We were very close-knit family. Weekends were all about walks in the park and just quality family time. And despite the little means that we had and kind of the environment, I actually think it's a very happy childhood.
Very good. And final question, what's one hobby you'd like to get into?
So, little known fact about me is that I love chess. Um, and I really would like to get a lot better at it. I think I'm pretty good, but I'd like to get a lot better at it. I also just find it so useful for business. It's a mind game. Yeah, it's just fascinating.
And then our final question, which is a question that was asked after the recording from our previous guest, who was Marco Milani. If you were to write a book, what would be the title?
Oh. Can I change the theme of what would be the contents of the book?
You're an entrepreneur. Apparently, you can change whatever you want.
Apparently, I never follow the rules. I thought about this quite a bit. I think it would probably be just sharing my journey and the ups and downs through it, and I hope it's inspirational to someone. I don't know. I think it would be something around just my journey and
My journey. I like that. Well, for somebody who's traveled as much as you have, my journey would be a really good title.
I suppose it sums it all, isn't it?
Anna, thank you very, very much. And thank you very much for going a little bit outside your comfort zone and agreeing to have this conversation in the first place. Thank you very much for your time. So this will probably be coming out a little bit after Edinburgh. Will you have had been in Edinburgh by the time this comes out?
I'm planning on going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I won't be. I will not have been in Edinburgh. I can't make it, so I will be in. But will you be in Bulgaria?
I am.
Okay, so we have some more local expertise.
And by the way, I am hosting EBC in Marbella in June 2026.
Yes, I have that in the calendar.
Yes. No pressure for me to organize.
No pressure for anybody. But if you have watched this episode to this point, you are contractually obliged to attend the EBC Marbella.
Okay, fair point.
Anna, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to seeing you somewhere soon.
See you very soon. Thanks.